Annabelle was 21 years old and she had just finished her NYSC youth service. 1 year of serving her country, and now it was done, and that certificate in her hand said she was officially, completely, gloriously free. The morning it arrived, she ran out of that small mud brick house in her village screaming with joy. She was wearing a white crop top and those tiny denim shorts she loved, her long hair flying behind her, her big gold earrings catching the morning sun, her glossy lips split open in the biggest smile that compound had ever seen. She held that certificate above her head like a trophy and she danced, oh, she danced, right there in the yard while the chickens scattered around her feet and her mother watched from her stool near the motor. Now let me describe Annabelle's mother for you, because you need to understand this woman. Mama was in her late 40s. She was the kind of woman who had been beautiful once and was now something better than beautiful. She was wise. Her face was soft and a little tired, the way faces get when they have carried a family on their prayers for many years. She wore her Ankara wrapper every day, her head wrapped neat, her hands always busy with something. And when she looked at her daughter dancing in that compound with that certificate, her eyes filled with tears. But here is the thing. Those tears were not entirely happy tears. Because Mama had raised this girl. She knew exactly what was coming next. And sure enough, Annabelle stopped dancing, looked at her mother with those bright ambitious eyes, and said the three words that would set this entire story in motion. Mama. Lagos. I want to go to Lagos. Silence. The chickens continued their business. A breeze moved through the compound. Somewhere down the road, someone was playing music. And Mama put down her peso, looked at her daughter, this beautiful, smart, impatient, fearless, 21-year-old daughter, and she said, "Sit down." And what Mama told her that morning? Every word of it was gold. She told Annabelle that Lagos was not what she saw on Instagram. She told her that the girls living large in that city, the ones with the fine bags and the big cars and the picture-perfect lives, that she needed to ask herself how they got there and what they were doing at night. She told her that Lagos would test her, not in an obvious way, but in a beautiful way. In a way that would look like a blessing while it was quietly destroying her. She told her that some prices are too high and some doors, once you walk through them, do not open from the other side. Annabelle listened. She nodded. She said, "Yes, Mama," in all the right places. And then she packed her bag. Because that is what 21 feels like from the inside. Bulletproof. Like warnings are for other people. Like you are the exception to every rule. Now, there was a boy. There is always a boy in these stories, and his name was Sammy. Sammy was 25, dark and clean and honest in the way of men who have nothing to hide. He was not rich. He did not have a car or a big house or a famous name. What he had was something rarer than all of those things. He genuinely loved Annabelle. Not the Instagram version of her. Not the girl she was trying to become. The real one. The one who grew up in that compound and used to laugh with her whole body and was kind to old people. He was leaning against the fence when she came out with her bag, and one look at his face told you everything. He was trying very hard to hold himself together. He asked her not to go. Or rather, and this is important, he did not ask her not to go. He was smarter than that. He asked her to be careful about the wanting. He told her Lagos was full of beautiful things that looked like answers and were actually questions. He told her that when she got there and saw other girls living large, the wanting that would rise up in her would be the most dangerous thing in the city, more dangerous than any person, more dangerous than any bad neighborhood. Because that wanting would feel like ambition. It would feel like confidence. But it would be hunger wearing a very convincing disguise. Annabelle looked at this good, simple, honest man who loved her completely, and do you know what she felt? Bored. Not mean bored. Not cruel bored. Just the impatient boredom of someone whose eyes are already on the horizon and who cannot understand why anyone would want to stand still. She kissed him on the cheek. She told him she would be fine. She told him she would come back successful and then everything would make sense. She walked away without looking back. Sammy stood there and watched her go. And he said something very quietly, so quietly she probably did not hear it. He said, "When Lagos plays you, I will still be here." Remember those words. Write them on a piece of paper and put it in your pocket. Because they matter later. Lagos did not welcome Annabelle. Lagos does not welcome anyone. Lagos simply exists, loud, overwhelming, enormous, completely indifferent to your dreams and your degree and the hope you carried on a bus from your village. The motor park at Mile 2 hit her like a wall. Hawkers screaming from every direction. Downfall buses honking for no reason. Motorcycles appearing from nowhere. Bodies everywhere, moving fast, going places, nobody stopping, nobody caring. And Annabelle stood right in the middle of all of it, and her phone was dead and she had one contact on a piece of paper but no address, no landmark, no map, nothing. 15,000 naira in her pocket. A bag in her hand. A degree she had worked 5 years for. And absolutely no idea what to do next. She sat on a concrete bench and stared at her dead phone and told herself to calm down. She was a graduate, she said to herself. She had options. She just needed to think. An hour passed. Then another. The bench was hot. The sun was merciless. The city moved around her like she was invisible. And that was the moment Linda appeared. Now, I need you to pay attention to Linda's entrance, because Linda is one of the most important characters in this story and people often misunderstand her. Linda was 25. Medium brown complexion. Curly lace front wig. A fitted burgundy dress that fit her perfectly. Small gold earrings. Clean makeup. The walk of a woman who had figured out Lagos, not the good way, but a way, and there is a difference. Linda looked at Annabelle on that bench and she saw herself from 3 years ago. Same lost face. Same dead phone. Same grip on the bag. Same village fresh eyes. And Linda, God bless her complicated heart, could not just walk past. She told Annabelle her flat was nearby. She told her to come, eat, charge her phone, figure out her next move. Annabelle hesitated. Her mother's voice was there, somewhere in the back of her mind, whispering something, and then she stood up and followed this stranger into the city. Listen. In this story, Linda is not the villain. I want to be very clear about that. Linda tried. You will see her try. But the road to certain kinds of disaster is always paved with someone who genuinely tried and then ran out of the strength to keep trying. Remember that. The apartment was in Lekki and it was gorgeous. White walls. Gold accents. A flat-screen television that covered most of one wall. Fresh flowers on the coffee table. Designer shoes arranged by color on a rack near the hallway, 15 pairs, maybe more. A sofa so deep and white and soft that sitting on it felt like being chosen by something. Annabelle walked in and stopped. She turned slowly, taking in every corner of the room. And then she saw the bag on the coffee table. Tan leather. Gold hardware. A logo she had only ever seen on the phones of girls she followed on Instagram and envied in silence. She picked it up without meaning to. She held it in both hands. She stared at the logo. And something happened inside Annabelle in that moment that she did not have words for yet. A door opened somewhere inside her chest. A hunger that had been sleeping quietly in the corner of her spirit, the hunger of a girl who grew up wanting and was tired of waiting, stood up and stretched and looked around. Over EBA and egusi soup that evening, Linda told Annabelle the truth. The whole truth. She said these things had come from men. Rich men who paid for everything. She said it was not a life she was proud of. She said from outside it looked fine, but from inside it was loneliness and performance and the slow steady forgetting of the person you used to be. She told Annabelle to find something real while she still could. Annabelle nodded and said she understood, and she truly believed that she understood. But her eyes kept drifting to the Gucci bag. And that hunger in the corner of her chest had not sat back down. 1 week later. 14 rejection emails. 9,000 naira. Can you imagine? She had sent her CV to every company she could find. She had written cover letters. She had followed up. She had done everything they tell you to do in career workshops, and still, one by one, the rejections came in. Thank you for your interest. The position has been filled. We will keep your details on file. That last one, we will keep your details on file, is the Lagos version of please do not contact us again. And on the evening of the 7th day, Linda walked out of the bedroom dressed for the night, and Annabelle looked at her and something inside her simply broke. Because Linda was magnificent. I am sorry, but there is no other word. Off-shoulder black dress. Stiletto heels. Flawless makeup. A lace front wig laid to perfection. She smelled like money, she moved like confidence, she looked like everything Annabelle had come to Lagos to become. And Annabelle was sitting there in a pastel pink crop top and grey sweatpants with 9,000 naira and 14 rejection emails, and she just cracked. She told Linda she was tired. Not the regular kind of tired. The bone deep, so tired kind that comes from watching other people live while you wait patiently for your turn and your turn does not come. She said she was tired of being patient while other girls were living. She said she had done everything right, the school, the service, the applications, and she had nothing to show for it. She wanted to go out. She wanted to see the life. Just see it. Just once. Linda turned around from the mirror and looked at this girl she had taken in and tried to protect, and saw that the decision had already been made. That she was not really being asked permission. She was being told. She sighed the long sigh of a woman who has already lost this argument. She told Annabelle to wear the red gown in the second wardrobe. Annabelle ran to that bedroom like it was Christmas morning. Now I want you to picture this club. Purple lights. Gold lights. Music so loud it lives in your chest instead of your ears. Hundreds of beautiful people in beautiful clothes doing beautiful things with expensive drinks. The air smells like designer perfume and ambition and the specific kind of recklessness that only comes out after midnight. Everything in that room is saying one thing: you have arrived. You are somebody. This is the life. Annabelle walked in wearing that red bodycon gown, and something happened to her that she had never felt before. Her whole body transformed. Her chin lifted. Her shoulders went back. Her walk changed. It was like the room reached inside her and pulled out a version of herself she had been carrying around without knowing, polished, fearless, fully formed, ready. She had never felt more alive in her life. She was still adjusting to all of it, the scale, the wealth, the casual magnificence of everything, when the crowd parted slightly and she saw him. Mike. 30 years old. Very dark, very well built, very handsome in the sharp-featured way of men who know exactly what they look like. All-white designer outfit. Rolex on his left wrist. Diamond stud in one ear. 2 men in black behind him. The DJ called his name into the microphone and bottles went up across the room. Linda leaned close to her ear and said, "This man spends more in one night than most people make in 6 months. He claims forex trading." And then she lowered her voice further and said, "Nobody in this city gets that kind of wealthy from forex." She told Annabelle he had cycled through women in this club the way he cycled through bottles, for the night, and then a new order. And then Mike looked across the room and his eyes landed on Annabelle. And Annabelle, oh, Annabelle, felt seen. Truly, deeply, thrillingly seen. For the first time since she had arrived in this city that had been ignoring her completely, someone was looking directly at her. The most powerful person in the room was looking directly at her. One of Mike's boys came to their table with an invitation. Linda shook her head firmly. No. Annabelle looked at Linda's face, looked at the warning in it, understood exactly what the warning was saying. And stood up anyway. She walked across that club like she had been doing it her whole life. Not running. Not rushing. Just walking, smooth, steady, confident, a woman who has somewhere to be and knows it. The village girl who arrived at Mile 2 bus park 2 weeks ago with a dead phone and 9,000 naira was nowhere to be seen. Linda watched her go. And across the noise and the lights and the distance between them, you could see it on Linda's face, the look of someone watching an accident that has already started and cannot be stopped. Now here is where our story gets some comic relief, because every great tragedy needs a little laughter to keep you breathing. Meet Bobber Gate and Chisholm. Bobber Gate was 40 years old, Mike's gateman, and had been sitting on that stool outside the compound for longer than he cared to remember. Dark complexion, pot belly, the kind of face that has seen too many things to be surprised by anything. He chewed constantly, always something in his mouth, and he watched the world from his stool with the calm eyes of a man who understood that his best contribution to any situation was silence and an open gate. Chisholm was the housemaid. 28 years old. Medium complexion. Maid uniform. And she was, God, how do I describe Chisholm? She was the kind of woman whose ears were always open and whose mouth was never far behind. She noticed everything. She remembered everything. And she needed to share everything, and Bobber Gate was her only audience. The morning after Annabelle first arrived, Chisholm came to Bobber Gate carrying her laundry basket and the energy of someone who had been awake since 4 in the morning waiting to talk. She told him everything. She told him how Annabelle had walked into that compound at 2 in the morning in her heels going clack 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 on the tiles, chin up, moving like she owned the building. She told him she recognized the red gown, she had washed that gown before, it belonged to a previous visitor, she knew it by its zipper and a small repair tear at the back. She demonstrated Annabelle's walk for Bobber Gate, one hand on her hip, chin tilted to the ceiling, shoulders doing things shoulders were not designed to do, and Bobber Gate pressed his lips together very firmly and looked at the sky and said, "Stop that," and she absolutely did not stop. And then Chisholm's voice went serious. She told Bobber Gate she recognized the look on Annabelle's face too. She said Annabelle had that look, that "I will be the one to change him" look. That dangerous, hopeful, completely uninformed look that she had seen on the faces of women in this compound before. She started counting them on her fingers. Temi. Sandra. Ngozi. The one who looked mixed race. The one who cried outside the gate for, she paused and looked at Bobber Gate, 45 minutes, she said. And Bobber Gate very quietly said it was 45 minutes, he had counted. And Chisholm stared at him. And he shrugged. But then she lowered her voice to almost nothing and she said she was worried about this one. She said Annabelle was young and green and that the look in her eyes was the look of someone who had already decided something. And she said she was going to pray for her. Bobber Gate said the inside of the life was empty and Chisholm agreed and they were both quiet for a moment, 2 working class people standing in the compound of a man who had more money than sense and watching another young woman walk toward a lesson nobody had been able to teach her yet. 1 month later, Annabelle was living in Mike's house. And she had transformed. Oh my God, she had transformed. Hot pink crop tops with glitter on them. Designer shorts so small they were mostly a suggestion. 16 wigs, Chisholm counted them, twice, arranged in the master bedroom wardrobe. Press-on nails with little diamonds and patterns that took an hour to apply. A designer bag on every outfit. Strappy heels that went clack 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 across the marble floors that she no longer noticed were marble because marble had become normal. She posted on Instagram every single day. Every day. Beautiful photos, beautiful lighting, big smile, designer everything, always in a room or a car or a restaurant that said, "Look at me. Look at how well I am doing. I told you I would make it." Back in the village, girls who had gone to school with her were double tapping her photos and writing "Slay Queen" and "Lagos Girl" in the comments, and each notification was a little hit of the feeling she had come here for, the feeling of being seen, of being envied, of being the girl who left and arrived somewhere worth arriving at. But here is what those Instagram followers did not see. They did not see her sitting alone in that beautiful house at 10 in the evening while Mike was out for the third night that week with no real explanation. They did not see the way her smile disappeared the moment she put the phone down. They did not see her lying in the dark next to a sleeping man and staring at the ceiling with the focused expression of someone who was not thinking about love. She was thinking about strategy. Because Annabelle had decided something. She had decided that Mike loved her. Not because of evidence. The evidence, if she had been willing to look at it honestly, told a different story. But because she needed him to love her. She had come too far and wanted too much and given up too much to be in this house simply as someone's temporary arrangement. She needed this to be real. And the only way she could think to make it real, to make him stop running, to give him a reason to stay, was a baby. I know. Some of you are shaking your head right now. But before you judge her, I need you to understand something. Annabelle did not come from a place of wickedness. She came from a place of deep, painful, exhausting insecurity. She had seen what she wanted and she was terrified of losing it. She was 21 years old and she was trying to build a foundation in the only way she could imagine, with the only tools she thought she had. The problem was not that she was bad. The problem was that she was desperate, and desperation makes brilliant people do things that common sense would never allow. When she went to visit Linda wearing gold from head to foot with a designer bag on her arm and the full performance of a woman who had arrived, Linda opened the door and looked at her the way a doctor looks at someone they know is sick but cannot force to take medicine. She let her in. She listened to Annabelle talk about Mike, the way Annabelle talked about Mike, like he was a man from a fairy tale, like the bags and the dinners and the club nights were love letters, like the expensive things he bought her were proof of the expensive feelings he had for her. And Linda, with all the gentleness and all the firmness of someone who has lived this exact story and knows every single page of it, told her the truth. She told her there was a difference between a man who loved you and a man who paid for you. She told her one would be there when the money was gone and the other one was the money. She told her she could see on Annabelle's face what she was planning to do and she begged her, she genuinely begged her, not to do it. She had seen it before. Multiple times. In this same city. With this same kind of man. And it had never, not once, ended the way the woman hoped. Annabelle stood up, picked up her designer bag, thanked Linda for her concern with a smile that said she had already stopped listening, and walked out the door in her gold outfit like a woman who had somewhere important to be. Linda sat back down in her chair and held her own hands. And somewhere deep in the compound in Lekki, Chisholm was looking at an extra cup in the kitchen sink and saying quietly to herself, "Lord, please." She told him on a Tuesday afternoon. She placed the pregnancy test on the glass coffee table between them like a chess piece. And she watched his face. The thing about Mike, the thing that made him more dangerous than an obviously bad man, was that he was calm. Always calm. He did not shout. He did not get angry. He looked at the test and he looked at her and his face went through several things very quickly, surprise, then calculation, then something flat and decided, and then he stood up and walked to the window. He told her not to worry. He said he would sort it out. He named a clinic. And Annabelle felt the floor shift under her feet. She asked him what he meant. He turned from the window and he told her, clearly and without heat, because the absence of heat was the cruelest part, that he was not ready for a child. That he had told her from the beginning he was not looking for anything serious. That the bags and the dinners and the bottles had not been a proposal. That he had enjoyed her company and that was not the same thing as love. That this thing needed to be taken care of and he would cover the cost. She told him she was keeping the baby. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked down the hall. Annabelle stood in the living room and she breathed and she waited and she told herself he had gone to think that he would come back different. That the news had shocked him and he needed a moment, and in a moment he would come back and say something that changed everything. The sounds from the hallway were the sounds of suitcase zippers. He came back carrying 2 suitcases and a black nylon bag, all her things, and he set them down at the front door as calmly as if he were taking out the recycling. He told her she was free to keep the baby, that was her right, but she would not keep it in his house. He opened the front door. He asked her to leave. And do you know the worst part? He was not even angry. There were no raised voices, no dramatic confrontation, no sign that any of this was costing him a single night's sleep. He was just done. Like you are done with a meal. You finish it, you push the plate away, you move on. Annabelle had tried to trap a man who did not know he was supposed to be trapped, in a house that was never going to be her home, with a love she had invented because she needed it to exist. She picked up her bags. She walked out the door. Baba Gate was on his stool. He always was. He opened the gate and he saw her face and he asked quietly if she had someone to call. She said she was fine. She kept walking. She said it with her chin up, because Annabelle, even now, even like this, still had her pride. Pride was the last thing standing when everything else had been taken. And Chisholm was watching through a crack in the fence. Not with triumph. Not with gossip energy. Just with sadness. The pure, genuine sadness of someone who had prayed for a person and was watching the thing they prayed would not happen anyway. I warned you, she whispered to herself. I prayed for you. Annabelle walked a few steps down the Lekki road and then she stopped. She stood on the sidewalk with the city moving past her and she had nowhere to go. The only person she could think to call was Linda. Linda came to the door in her pajamas. She took one look at Annabelle, no makeup, swollen eyes, wrinkled clothes, 2 suitcases, the whole sorry picture, and she said, "Come in." And for one beautiful moment, Annabelle thought she had been saved. But Linda sat down. And she told her. She told her with pain in her voice, because Linda was not a hard woman, she was just a tired one. She said she could not do this. She could not carry a pregnant woman and a baby. Her own life was barely holding together under the pretty surface of it, the flat, the shoes, all of it had a cost that she paid every day in ways Annabelle had never seen. She said she had warned her at every step. About Mike. About that first night in the club. About the pregnancy. She had warned her and Annabelle had smiled and walked in the other direction every single time. She told her to go home. Go back to the village. Go back to her mother. Annabelle said she could not go back. Everyone would know. The shame of it was too heavy to carry back through those village roads. And Linda looked at her and said something that cut through every excuse. She asked Annabelle which was worse, people in the village who would talk for a few weeks, or staying alone in a city that had shown her exactly what it thought of her. She said shame was not permanent. She said the people who loved Annabelle were at home. And Annabelle, who had been holding herself together for weeks, performing fine, performing okay, performing Lagos girl who has arrived, finally let it go. She slid from the sofa to the floor and she cried the way people cry when they have been saving it up for a very long time. Ugly and loud and completely real. All of it coming out at once, the bus park, the rejection emails, the red gown, the glass table, the suitcases at the door, all of it. Linda sat down on the floor beside her. Not touching her. Not saying anything. Just there. Present. Because sometimes love has said everything it knows how to say and all that is left is to sit with someone in it. In the morning, Annabelle packed her bags and went to the bus park. She was going home. The village looked exactly the same. Of course it did. The world does not rearrange itself for your mistakes. The red dirt road was still red. The zinc rooftops were still zinc. The trees still met overhead. The air still smelled of palm oil and wood smoke and the particular quiet of a place that is not in a hurry. Annabel walked through it with her suitcases and the village women saw her and the whispering started immediately. She heard it. She kept walking. Chin up. One foot in front of the other. She had come from Lagos. She was going to walk through this road the same way she had walked across that nightclub, like she knew exactly where she was going, even if the destination this time was not the one she had planned. She reached her mother's compound. She stopped at the gate. She had not called ahead. She had no speech prepared. She had nothing, no success story, no exciting updates, no impressive news to report. Just herself, smaller and truer and more real than she had been when she left. The door opened. Mama walked out to hang something on the line. She looked up. She saw her daughter. She took in the plain clothes and the tired face and the two suitcases and the thing in Annabel's eyes that had not been there before, that thing that gets put in your eyes when life teaches you something expensive, and she said nothing. She opened her arms. And Annabel dropped those suitcases and ran to her mother the way she had not run to anyone since she was small, and she held on and the whole compound could hear her crying and she did not care. She said she was sorry. She said her mother had been right about everything. She said she had been so stupid, so sure, so certain that the one thing was enough to make things work out. Mama held her and rocked her and said nothing for a while. Just held on. The way only mothers can. Then Annabel told her about the baby. Mama went very still. She looked at her daughter's face. And then she made the decision that mothers have been making since the beginning of time, the decision that says this is my child, and whatever has happened, that has not changed. She cupped Annabel's face in both hands. She told her to come inside. She picked up one suitcase. Annabel picked up the other. And they walked back into that small, simple, ordinary house together. Outside the fence, some of the village women stood watching. Some of them shook their heads. None of them mattered. That evening, in the small kitchen with a kerosene lantern on the table and a cup of pap in her hands, Annabel told her mother everything. And I mean everything. Not the version she had been performing on Instagram. The real version. She talked about Linda's apartment and what she felt in her chest when she first walked into it, that door that opened, that hunger that woke up. She talked about the nightclub and Mike and how it felt to be looked at by the most powerful man in the room, how that feeling had filled every empty space inside her that the rejection emails had carved out. She talked about the Instagram photos and the performance of her life while something underneath quietly fell apart. She talked about the pregnancy test on the glass table and the sounds of the suitcase coming from the hallway. Mama listened to every word without interrupting once. And when Annabel was done, she asked her just one question. She asked if she remembered what she had told her, the morning she left, about Lagos testing her in a way that looked like a blessing. Annabel said yes. Mama asked if she had seen it when it came. And Annabel said, and this is the most honest thing she had said in months, she said she had walked right into it. With her eyes open. With full confidence. Knowing somewhere deep down that people who loved her had warned her, and choosing the wanting over the wisdom every single time. There was a knock at the door. It was Sammy. He was wearing a plain light blue shirt and dark trousers and he had walked over in the evening because he had heard she was back. He looked at her and she looked at him and everything that needed to be said without words was said. He sat down at the table. Annabel told him about the baby, clearly, directly, because he deserved the truth from her mouth. He sat with it. His jaw tightened and then it loosened. And then he said he was not there to collect anything. He had said he would still be here. So here he was. Mama put a third cup on the table without being asked. And they sat there, the three of them, in that small warm kitchen, in the house Annabel had spent a year trying to escape, in the village she had been so sure was her ceiling. And she understood, for the first time, what she had actually had. Later, Annabelle sat alone on the front step of the compound. The sky was doing that thing it does at dusk in Nigerian villages, burning orange at the edges, fading up through deep purple, slowly filling with stars. Crickets. Distant laughter. A chicken settling near the fence. The smell of Mama's kitchen drifting through the door. She typed a message to Linda. She said she was home. She said she knew Linda had tried to warn her at every turn and that she had been too hungry for what she wanted to hear what she needed. She said she was sorry. She said she hoped Linda would also find a real way out, because she deserved better than the life she was living. She sent it. She put the phone down. And she sat with herself for the first time in a long time. She had come to Lagos to take over a city. She was going to be the next biggest thing, the girl who came from nothing and arrived at everything. She had packed that dream so tightly in her chest that there had been no room for patience, no room for wisdom, no room for the voices of the people who loved her and were trying to protect her from herself. She had confused being desired with being loved. She had confused being spoiled with being valued. She had confused movement with progress. She had been so terrified of being ordinary that she had chased extraordinary in the worst possible direction and paid a price she would be paying for a long time. She put her hand on her stomach. And she said sorry to the small life inside her. Sorry for rushing. Sorry for trying to use this life to fix something that was already broken. She said she would do better. She did not know exactly how yet, the how was still ahead of her, still being built, one day at a time. But she knew the direction. And for the first time, she was willing to walk toward it without rushing. Because that was the lesson Lagos gave her. The expensive, necessary, unforgettable lesson. That patience is not weakness. That wanting is not the same as deserving. That the life you build slowly and honestly is the only kind that actually holds you when everything else falls away. And that the people who loved you before you had anything, before the designer bags and the Lekki apartment and the Instagram likes, those people are the ones still standing at your door when all of that is gone. Sammy had said he would still be here. He was here. The light in the kitchen came on behind her. Mama's voice drifted out, warm and ordinary and everything. Annabelle. Food is ready. Come inside. She stood up. She took one last look at the sky. And then she went inside. The door closed. The compound was quiet. And somewhere in Lagos, the city continued exactly as it always had, loud and bright and magnificent and completely indifferent, waiting for the next girl to get off a bus and believe that this time, for her, it would be different. I believe you enjoyed this story. Kindly subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.